Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the people, businesses, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Troy Farkas, and on today's episode, my conversation with two women who find themselves on the front lines of a revolution. One of my favorite things about the Seacoast is how many people here are silently making a big impact on the entire world. For example, you know the new Getty Bagel in Portsmouth that everyone is raving about? Well, the guy who opens that is actually a multi-millionaire who built a tech company, sold it to Medium, built another tech company, and then sold it to Spotify, where we were briefly coworkers, or like Lonza, the biotech company in Portsmouth that's trying to find a cure for type 1 diabetes, which, selfishly, I would like for that to happen. And then there's Cold Current Kelp, a tiny Kittery-based business that's tackling the massive problem of cleaning up the skincare industry. For years now, experts have praised kelp-based products as the next frontier in health and wellness. Not only is this all-natural approach better for your body, but it's also better for the environment. So when Inga Potter, a longtime marine biologist, first caught wind of this, she knew she wanted to do something with kelp. And not long after Inga told her friend Krista Rosen about her kelp-based dreams, the two decided to go into business together. Fast forward to today, and Cold Current Kelp has received $825,000 in grants to research the benefits of kelp. Plus, they've appeared on one of my favorite podcasts, NPR's How I Built This. Inga just did a Portsmouth TEDx talk about kelp, and the scrappy team of two is still somehow finding time to manufacture their flagship product, the Kelp Glow Facial Oil, which you can find in 30-plus stores across 6 states: Maine, New Hampshire, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Today's episode is presented by JOBTALK and Yoga East, and in this show, we'll discuss how they create this product, a process which starts with Krista and Inga on a boat in the Piscataqua every winter. Plus, they'll talk about Maine's booming kelp industry, why no one else is doing what they're doing, what it's like working with a close friend, and how much to pay yourself when you're in the early days of building something big. But before all that, we begin with how Krista invited herself to join Inga on this venture 4 years ago. Here's Inga with the story.
I think our friendship evolved over several years. I went through a divorce, and I remember Krista really showed up for me a lot during that time. And she's like, whatever.
Krista's like, did I?
But I remember really being touched by that. And I don't know, we weren't best friends or anything, but I think our friendship definitely had grown and kind of evolved. And we went for a walk one day, kind of towards the ends of COVID. And we were just catching up and walking. And I had decided that I wanted to start a kelp farm. I had learned about kelp farming. I'd been passionate about wanting to get into aquaculture of some kind, so growing something in the ocean. I always kind of thought it was going to be oysters. That was kind of a dream of mine. I just loved the idea of working on the water, and had a few conversations with colleagues and people that I knew from my time at UNH and kind of just in the industry, I guess, who had said, seaweed farming, kelp farming, that's going to be the thing. And so without really knowing anything other than I wanted to do this, and I had some help from colleagues at UNH to get there, I told Krista, I'm like, oh yeah, so I'm going to start a kelp farm, and told her why. And so that was kind of the subject, I guess, of our walk. And so by the end of the walk,
yes, to be clear, she never invited me to join her on this journey. I kind of invited myself. So the goal of the walk was not to talk about business or anything related to that. She just happened to bring it up and was telling me about all of these amazing things that kelp can do and be used for other than eating. And I was just so fascinated that by the end of the walk, I said, I'll be your partner. And she said, okay. And then the next day, I kind of felt bad for inviting myself. So I texted her and said, I didn't mean to invite myself to your kelp party, so if you don't want to do this together, that's fine. And she said, no, I'd love to. So that's how that started. It was really just spur of the moment, honestly.
Wow. Okay.
And I was so excited that day that we went on the walk, that it was the one time that I forgot to pick up my kids at school, because I went for a walk with my husband later and I was like, you know what I'm going to do for a business? And he just looked at me all skeptically and I said, kelp. I actually videotaped him as I said this because I thought, maybe someday this will be, mean something to us. But I was so excited of telling him about it that I eventually looked at my watch and it was past the time to pick up my kids. So I'll confess that. But that's how excited I was about this.
Wow.
Yes.
Who needs baby reveals when you can do business reveals?
Right.
Great story. So I want to put a pin in that and go back. Inga, why? So this is 2020, 2021 time. Okay. You said that kelp and seaweed was the next great frontier. Why were industry experts so bullish on that?
Well, it really came down to a casual conversation I had with someone in the kind of seaweed export or seafood export industry. And I just happened to run into this person actually in the Bahamas, but it was someone that I knew, and we were just chit-chatting and catching up. And I said to him just casually over a cocktail, I was like, oh, actually, I'm really thinking of starting an oyster farm. Like, I love this idea. And he was like, seaweed. He does a lot of work in Asia. Like, he works kind of globally. And he was like, seaweed is where it's at. It's really going to be the next big thing. So that was in like 2017.
Okay.
And I was traveling and sailing with my kids and kind of doing some crazy stuff. When I got back to Maine, that idea was still kind of ruminating. And when I went to sit down with the guys at UNH that I know and work with who do some aquaculture work, I was saying, I kind of want to start an oyster farm or maybe a seaweed farm. And they said, well, look at all the oyster farms in Great Bay. Let's look at all these licenses. Let's look at a map. Like, no one's really doing kelp. And they'd been doing some experimenting with kelp too, and they were just a lot higher on the kelp idea as well. So then I did a little more looking into the benefits of kelp and how it's great for the environment and all of the potential that it has. And it just sort of opened this avenue of that was the path.
Okay. And so where were you in your life? Were you like, you had just gotten divorced. So were you just going through some type of, I need to do something new and different? Was that the mindset you were in?
Midlife crisis.
Yeah, I was going to say it. You can say it.
Pretty much 100%. I mean, I got divorced when we got back to Maine, essentially after traveling for a couple of years. So right around 2018, 2019, I was going through all of that. And I had heard a little bit about kelp farming and spending some time with family out on Nantucket, kind of talking about life and what I want to do. I needed something to kind of give me some passion and some hope. And I wasn't working full-time at the time or anything like that. So it kind of gave me something to kind of go for.
Okay, Krista, what about you? When she approached you about this idea that you invited yourself to be a part of, what was the headspace that you were in at that point professionally?
Right. So I had worked from home before it was really acceptable or cool to work from home, essentially since 2011. So I had worked as an attorney from my house in Maine, and I had worked for a couple of firms. I had been sort of the project I was working on kind of ended during COVID. So I was essentially laid off from that and just doing a little bit of legal work here and there. And I just had always had the sense that I didn't want to be a lawyer forever. I'm just a very curious person and I have different hobbies and I love learning new things. And I had always thought maybe it would be fun to do something else and something that was beneficial for the environment. And just looking really for something else to do, but not actively looking, just kind of being open to it.
Okay. And had either of you at any point had dreams about starting your own business, working for yourselves?
I never dared to dream that. Honestly, I had zero confidence that I could do that. I mean, I had worked for 15 years as an attorney, and you're kind of always working at firms and you're working for other people. And so it just wasn't in my mindset. Nobody in my family has ever started their own business. So it just wasn't something that I really, if you had asked me, I would have said, oh, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. So that's why it was so nice to find Inga, who had that passion of like, I'm going to start this on my own, that I was like, oh, I could do that with somebody.
Yeah. And I would say that it was an opportunity. It was something I was excited about, but I knew nothing about what I was getting into and had never had aspirations of like, oh, I'm going to be this, entrepreneur or anything like that.
So, I mean, what about kelp was so, they said this is the next big thing, but you have to be very passionate about the idea of, entrepreneurship, as you guys, I'm sure, are well aware, 4 years into this, demands a lot of you, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of little things come up that you never would have anticipated. So was this like an idea of passion? Was this an idea of, oh, this is going to like make me some real money because there's a real business opportunity here?
For me, it was probably more passion. Probably should have been more thinking about the financial. Hearing from this person that I talked to, the Bahamas story I told you, who's an incredibly successful business person and someone that we both respect, I think was a sign to me that like, this is good advice. So take it. As to what we were going to do with the kelp once we farmed it, we didn't know. But learning about all the environmental benefits, and again, that idea of wanting to do something good for the environment. I love the idea of producing a resource that can be used for, whatever it is, whether it's food or some other use, but it's also improving environmental health. I think that is so important and so valuable. And that was really what attracted me to kelp. And it was something that people weren't doing. So, oyster farms, it's hard to find the water. There's a lot of people doing it. It's super labor intensive, gear intensive. This was something totally different. And the benefits are huge.
Just for this area, no one was doing it, or nationally as well?
So both. It's actually Maine is the leader in the US,
okay.
I guess followed closely by Alaska. But nobody in this part of Maine was doing kelp.
Okay.
Yeah.
The benefits of kelp you alluded to. What are the benefits of using kelp?
So kelp is a super efficient photosynthesizing organism. So you can kind of think like, we know trees are great for our environment because they absorb carbon dioxide, they're producing oxygen. The same can be said for kelp. It does it more efficiently than trees because it grows so quickly. So it's really great at absorbing carbon dioxide, which is obviously great for, combating climate change and all of the carbon dioxide that we're putting into our environment. By absorbing carbon and nitrogen, it's also helping to deacidify our oceans, which is a big problem for shelled organisms like mussels and clams and things like corals in warmer climates that are being harmed by acidic water. It makes their shells less resistant. So, their mortality increases. It provides habitat. It essentially is doing all of these great things just by being in the ocean and growing naturally.
In layman's terms, what trees do for the environment above water, kelp does for the environment underwater.
Yes, basically. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Some people have said it purifies the water, it cleans the water. I wouldn't necessarily put it that way, but thinking simply kind of, yes, it's doing good things for the water and for the environment. It's pulling pollutants out and doing good things.
Okay, so that's the benefits for the environment. We'll talk about the benefits for the individual in a moment. But okay, Krista, so you guys go on this walk and you send the panic text message the next day apologizing for inviting yourself. But you guys agree, no, let's do this. So what is the next step from there?
So that walk was September 1st. And I think the next week we started working on our permits. That's part of the process for having water space in Maine. Department of Marine Resources grants those permits. And it's
to grow your own kelp.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. To have your own kelp farm. So we started working on that. It's a decent amount of paperwork, but I was a lawyer. I was up for the challenge. So that's kind of how we started. And honestly, back in those days, I just assumed or thought that kelp farming was a year-round activity and that you would just plant and harvest, maybe once a week, once a month. I really had a misunderstanding of the life cycle of kelp and how one goes about planting and harvesting it. So back in those days, I thought this was going to be kind of a full-time job as a kelp farmer, which sounded exciting to be out on the water, but there were just so many pieces that needed to come together and so much learning I needed to do.
And just to stop you, okay, so had you guys already settled on what exactly you wanted your company to be?
Oh,
you just knew you wanted to do something in kelp. And so then first step was like, all right, well, if we want to do something in kelp, we have to grow kelp. So we need to figure that piece out first.
Yes. And actually, I'm just remembering that on that first walk, I was thinking in my head that maybe we could make kelp plant pots, because I'm a big gardener and all that. So if you go to a nursery or a greenhouse, they have lots of those plastic little pots that they grow seedlings and larger plants in. And I knew that kelp was an ingredient that you could amend your soil with, kind of a fertilizer. So I thought just on that walk, like, oh, maybe we could make little plant pots and, do away with the black plastic pots that you see at nurseries. So even in my head at that point, I was thinking, let's do something other than food, which I think we both kind of agreed on quite early. It was just kind of a question of what.
Right. So I'd say the first, maybe not year of the business, but close to that, we were literally just getting what we needed to get the farm going. We were talking to folks at UNH that were in the aquaculture world who were kind of helping us. We were learning the basics of how do you seed a farm? How do you harvest? How are we going to dry it? Just all of the really basic kind of kelp 101.
But still not with the knowledge of what am I actually going to do with this kelp once I have it.
Right. Absolutely no real business plan or way to make money. And then eventually we did kind of settle on skincare, but we had a totally different approach, which we thought we would essentially grow the kelp, crunch it up, maybe make it a powder and sell it to companies that have kind of a natural bent to their products. So maybe a soap company or like a Tom's of Maine could make a shampoo or something. And I don't know, we didn't try too hard to sell that because it eventually became clear that you go to the grocery store or the pharmacy or where you buy skincare and it might say it has seaweed or kelp in the product, but it's not green, right? And a lot of people might not want to put something green on their faces. And when you have dried kelp and you pulverize it, it's a green powder. So pretty quickly, we just thought, we just can't have a green powder, really. Nobody is going to want this for skincare. So that led us down the path of kind of extracts and figuring out the chemistry of what in kelp is beneficial and how do we extract that without the green part and all that. So that came along later. But at those early days, we just had this vague concept of taking raw kelp, drying it, and selling it to companies who would obviously want lots of it for their products.
Okay. So how did you ultimately land on we should make our own skincare products, Inga?
Yeah, I think as to Krista's point, at first, naively, we were just going to be a raw kelp supplier, essentially. But instead of food, where most of the kelp in Maine or the focus in Maine has been, we were like, well, we'll just sell it to beauty companies instead. And I think we realized pretty quickly that there wasn't a market for that, as Krista kind of said. People weren't going to be not banging our door down to buy raw kelp from us when they could source it from other places for cheaper, even if it was overseas. And or they might be just putting a sprinkling of it in their product as a very small part of their product just to say that they have seaweed in it. So I feel like it was probably Krista's drive to make her own product. She was kind of like this mad scientist a little bit at times, experimenting with different things, which I love about her. She's just curious, looks it up and does it. So I think it was probably your drive to really start experimenting with making your own product.
Right. Yeah, we definitely did experiment a bit with kind of a fertilizer for growing plants and kind of had made some things in that vein. And I almost thought of it as a side project when we first started the process of developing a skincare product. I just thought, oh, this would be fun. I've read about all these benefits and, let's kind of try it. I have a cousin who's a chemist. And so She helped kind of develop a formula, but then it just kind of took on a life of its own. We ended up sending samples to 100 friends and family and got really good feedback, made some minor tweaks. And it took kind of a long time for us to admit that this was what we were going to do, because I think at that point I was still gung-ho on the fertilizer aspect of the business. So it was almost an accident. And then I realized all of the work that goes into making your first bottle that actually has a barcode and a label and a box.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to make one, obviously you're just better off making thousands at that point.
Right. So when people start a business, oftentimes it's like we were saying, out of a passion for a product, or there's a problem in the world and you're trying to solve it. So I'm wondering, were any of you, or were either of you unhappy with the skincare products that you were using? Did you see holes in the skincare industry that you thought you two could address?
I think the drive for skincare really came first from literature, from kind of reading about these incredible benefits that these compounds in kelp have for your skin, and that no one is doing that with kelp that's grown here in the US. Why is that? You know, kind of like shaking our heads, like, why is no one doing this? Why is all this research overseas? Why is no one innovating here? And to that point, I think we both appreciate clean, natural products, which are hard to find and or expensive. Are they worth it? Can we trust it? So I think we just saw this opportunity to do something really awesome with kelp grown here in Maine, and make a product that was really effective and authentic, that we would buy, that we would use, that we would give our teenage daughters to use, our mothers to use. And that kind of spoke to us.
Yeah. When we first talked about doing a skincare product, I would have friends bring me things that they had found out in the wild, right? Well, yeah, out in the world. So, you know, somebody brought me a shampoo from a hotel that said contains kelp and things like that. And I would look at these products and they all had dyes in them to make them look like a beautiful greenish blue, you know, product like that. And I just thought, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, any benefit that they might have gotten from, you know, putting some kind of seaweed extract in there, which is probably untraceable, imported from across the world. You don't know what kind of water quality. There's probably very little in there that's able to, like, you know, convey any skincare benefits. I just thought it wasn't a problem necessarily. Like, you don't necessarily look at your shampoo bottle and say, oh, it's a problem that there's these ingredients. But I just thought of it more as an opportunity. Like, Maine has a really good reputation for having cold, clean water. And frankly, we as a country import 95% of our seaweed, which is frankly ridiculous.
Really?
Yes. When you think about it, because we have one of the world's largest exclusive economic zones where we can grow seaweed and kelp and things like that. And so it's kind of like, why aren't we doing this? Why are we importing this from across the world? And I just sort of saw that opportunity to do something that was locally made to help, you know, working waterfront people here, to reduce the carbon impact of transporting these materials all across the world. And to make a clean product. We have all organic ingredients that we add with our kelp extract. Just like Inga said, something that we would feel good about our teenage daughters using.
So the Kelp Glow facial oil is your flagship product. You settled on this oil as the main thing for you guys to sell. It's preservative free, and it's the best product for you to really build this company around. I know nothing about this stuff. What are the benefits of this oil for your skin?
The oil it's our kelp extract and a blend of organic carrier oils that are all very good for your skin, and have those kind of skincare benefits as well. But the kelp itself is full of compounds that are very good for your skin. So basically, kelp has evolved to thrive in these very harsh environmental conditions. It grows in very cold water with extreme fluctuations in temperature over the course of the season. It's got the harsh sun beating down on it all the time, the salinity, the acidity of the water, all of these things might change. But kelp thrives in that environment, and that is unusual. It grows so quickly and really does so well. And scientists have discovered the reason it does that is it produces compounds or sort of secondary compounds whose only job is to really protect and support it so it can grow in these environments. So those compounds have great benefits for our skin. So antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, they found these compounds that disrupt these pathways in our skin that break down collagen and elastin, hyaluronic acid, all of these things that contribute to fine lines and things like that. So kelp has these compounds that actually disrupt that process. So those are some of the benefits. There's a lot of hydrating compounds. There's vitamins, minerals, just tons of, as a nutrient-packed resource, kelp is very unique, and not just in skincare, but in fertilizers, animal feeds, food. It's very unique in that it has this profile of very powerful compounds.
So algae has been around for over 1 billion years. So it's had a long time to kind of adapt and maximize its benefits and its environment.
Okay. Well, thank you for that science lesson. Let's talk some more science. So you've alluded to the kelp farming process a little bit, and that it indeed is not a year-round process. But so take me into your kelp farming process, Krista.
Yes. So starting in late summer, we put in an order with our hatchery that we use, and they start growing little baby kelps. Imagine a spool of string or thread, and you would put that, say in a glorified aquarium, and they work some magic to get little kelp spores. I'm the non-marine biologist here, but so those little kelp spores attach to the thread, essentially. And that happens over the fall. And then by usually November, we get a call saying that our kelp threaded spores are ready. And so we go pick them up in Biddeford. And we essentially just plant them over a couple hours on a day in November or December. And planting them means going out in a boat, and there in the water is essentially 2 moorings with a line suspended between them, like a line being like a rope. And to plant the kelp, we essentially unspool the thread onto the line, and the little baby kelps, which are millimeters, centimeters long at that point, they eventually attach themselves to the rope instead of the little thread, and they grow throughout the winter. So we probably plant them in November, December, and we harvest in the spring or early summer.
Wow. Okay. So you two go out on a boat when it's frigid.
Yes.
And in what body of water are we in?
So our farm is off the coast of Fort Foster, so kind of at the mouth of the Piscataqua River.
Our farm just in the middle of the water. That's funny. Okay, so over the winter, it grows significantly. I've seen the before and after pictures. When you're unspooling this in the spring, summer, it's like you have like feet, yards of kelp that have grown, which is pretty wild.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy how within 6 or 7 months, it goes from a centimeter to, 13 feet or more.
Yeah. And so then you guys go out on the boats again. And do you tend to it at all in the in-between time?
It's not really necessary. There's nothing that you need to do. Kelp doesn't need, fresh water or added nutrients or fertilizer or pesticides or anything like that. The biggest concern is storms. So, essentially, if a big storm came by, it could wash out your kelp farm, or there could be other issues, if a propeller hit it or something. But there is nothing you need to do out on the water.
Okay. So you guys go out on the boat again, and then you just pick up the kelp and take it with you back to shore?
Yes. Yeah. We sort of lean over the boat and grab it by hand and put it into buckets. And
it's you two going out on the boat to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We are the muscle behind this process. We have a very devoted boat driver, captain guy, man of all things, who helps us a lot.
Gunner, he's the best. He does a ton for us and is with us every time, driving the boat and He's got some muscle too, but we're pretty tough.
Right. Yeah.
I wish I had a boat guy. I need boat.
Everyone needs a boat.
Yeah, I like the phrase boat guy.
Yeah. All right. So you get your kelp, you just drag it out of the water, and then you put it on the boat. You take it back to shore with you, and then what?
Yeah, so we lease a greenhouse or part of a greenhouse at Nooney Farm here, right next to Kittery Land Trust in Kittery. And we essentially hang what you might look like clothesline across the greenhouse. And we hang up our kelp kind of blade by blade. And all of this process is not particularly efficient. And there are kelp farms that do it more efficiently, both in terms of like getting the kelp out of the water and the ways that they can dry it. But for us right now, this is what works. So yeah, we hang the kelp in the greenhouse.
Yeah, we kind of harvest in small batches, which again is what works for us. So our goal is never to have a huge farm. Our farm is quite small. We just want to have our hands on the resource, the natural resource, really learn all there is to know about the challenges and the science behind the farming. So we harvest in small batches, probably 5 or 6 times a season. And then we take essentially those totes of raw kelp, carry them up to our cars, drive to the greenhouse, and then hang them kind of blade by blade, depending on how big the blades are. The bigger the blades, it's a little easier, just like you'd hang laundry on a line. And within about 24 hours, it'll dry.
Really?
In ideal dry bluebird day conditions. And then it's literally like paper. I mean, so much of kelp's weight is water. And so we pull it off and then we store it after that. So, I mean, it is fairly labor intensive. If you had a big farm, and this is actually one of the challenges of kelp farming, if someone's trying to have a huge kelp farm, how do you get all of that kelp out of the water, get it processed, get it dried, in a timely manner, especially, depending on your timeline. But for us, we sort of do this small batch method and it works.
And what is the quantity of kelp that you leave with?
So over the course of the season, about 4,000 pounds wet.
All right. So then you take to the greenhouse, it dries there, and then you bring it back to your office. And then what do you do with it?
We bring it back to our kelp headquarters and we store it. And then when we make our oil in small batches, relatively small batches. We will take it and then we grind it down so that we can work with it to make the extract. So that part's that's probably maybe the least fun part is grinding it down. We've tried a few different methods and it's pretty brutal. A lot of dust and heat.
Yes, exactly. But once it is here and it's dried in bags, it's shelf stable for a couple years, which is nice because once you take it out of the water, I mean, on a hot day, it can start to go bad within hours. So it's so nice just to have it back at the office. It's cool, dry, and it can remain here for a while.
Okay. All right. So this is a lot. You have the boat guy. Is anyone else helping you with all of this?
Not really. Occasionally we'll have people who are just really curious and they want to come help. We've recently hired somebody to help us with a little bit of this stuff and she's been awesome. We've had her out on the boat and in the greenhouse helping to hang kelp or take it down. And other than that, it's really just Inga and I.
Coming up, how Krista and Inga got their facial oil on the shelves without even trying. That's next. But first, I want to tell you about another legendary Kittery business. Established on the seacoast in 2001, Yoga East is the oldest Ashtanga yoga studio in all of New England. Now, what the heck is Ashtanga? Ashtanga yoga was born in India in the 1940s, and it's based on classical yoga philosophy that dates back thousands of years. Ashtanga focuses on a balance of strength building, flexibility, and cardiovascular health through dynamic and consistent sequences. All of their classes follow a sequence of postures that link breath, movement, and internal focus, meant to generate heat in the body, build vitality, and calm the mind. While all classes find their roots in the Ashtanga tradition, Yoga East offers a wide mix of options available to anyone and everyone, including beginner vinyasa, vinyasa 1 and 2, yin, restorative, and yoga for longevity. At Yoga East, which I've been to and have loved to practice, It is their highest goal to welcome and help everyone interested in the benefits that a yoga practice brings to the mind, body, and spirit. They meet each student where they are, with a wide range of classes and some of the most experienced teachers on the Seacoast. Want to try it out? Then click the link in the show notes to sign up for a 5-class card and use the coupon code STORIES at checkout to get 50% off. That's 50% off with the code STORIES at checkout. I've loved my time at Yoga East, and I think you will too. And someone else who I know loves her fair share of yoga and exercise is our dear friend, Crystal Hicks of JOBTALK. JOBTALK is a virtual career counseling business that helps you navigate every aspect of your career. Crystal, who won 40 Under 40 recognition from the Union Leader, has spent 17 years in the job sector. Formerly of Lindt Chocolate and UNH Career Services, Crystal is extremely passionate about landing you your dream job, getting you the raise you deserve, or at the very least, connecting you to the right person who can take your career to the next level. Plus, she's a professor of a career development course at UNH's famed business school, which has produced several Seacoast Stories guests, like Flamingo's Mackenzie Logan, for example. If you or your loved one need a career boost, then I can't recommend JOBTALK enough. If you would like to be one of her 400 plus clients she sees virtually around the world, then you can visit jobtalkllc.com to schedule a free intro call. But if you don't have time for counseling, our listeners can get one of Crystal's online courses for 50% off using the code SeacoastStories50 at checkout. That's SeacoastStories50 to get 50% off any course on subjects like building a great resume, cover letter, or LinkedIn profile. Excludes live sessions, only valid for the 4 JOBTALK Academy courses. Thank you, JOBTALK, and thank you, Yoga East, for supporting the show. Here's Krista again.
Almost all of those stores actually found us. We have spent the last couple years doing a lot of R&D behind the scenes, working on kind of our next generation of products that we hope to come out with someday. We've had a lot of federal grants, and this is all to say we haven't had a lot of time to be salespeople. And we don't love being salespepeople.
That is not our skill set. We both are very, that is not something we enjoy.
Okay.
So we've done one trade show 2 years in a row in Portland, and that's where we've gotten a good handful of those stores.
Yeah.
And then others have kind of just found us and come.
So without putting too much effort into it, your product has shown up in 30 plus stores across several states, which is pretty impressive.
Well, when you say it that way, that sounds great.
Yeah, it does make us sound really, really impressive.
Yes. No, it is really nice that everything has grown organically. We have done very little advertising and very little, trade showing and all that. So it's nice to see it growing.
So why do you think these stores in these different areas have been so interested in the product without you really pushing it upon them?
I think our story, I think people like a product that's transparent, that, we are literally have our hands on this product from planting the seed. And I think that it's from Maine, that there's this great environmental benefit, and that it's an authentic and effective product. I mean, the science behind the kelp is also, has a lot of appeal, and people want products where they know where it's coming from. And so I think it's kind of a combination of our story and how we create the product, and then they really like the product.
We actually did a survey at one point, and the most frequent answer was that people had heard good things about seaweed. And I assume that means in skincare, but I'm not sure our question got that detailed, but which was really heartening, actually, because we've literally gotten questions asking if our kelp farm is on land, like on a real, terrestrial farm. So there's a whole variety of knowledge or lack thereof out there about what kelp and seaweed is. And so it was surprising and nice to hear that people had heard about benefits of seaweed.
Yeah, a lot of people they're like, is kelp a seaweed? Is that the same? And kelp is, in fact, a seaweed, but people sometimes aren't sure.
Kelp is a form of seaweed. Seaweed is not kelp.
Kelp is a seaweed. Not all seaweeds are kelp.
Yes.
Yeah, seaweed is kind of the overarching term,
right. Yes.
And kelp is one of those.
Again, like trees, right? Like types of trees.
Right.
There's different types of seaweeds.
Okay. Any idea how much per year or how many bottles of your product you sell?
I don't think I have even looked at that data recently.
Okay.
Yeah, we're primarily on like direct to consumer.
Okay.
So we have a pretty loyal and kind of growing customer base, kind of started organically with friends and family and word of mouth. And that is where we sell the majority of our product.
For the people who use your product, what is the feedback that you guys get on it?
Yeah, I mean, people love it. One word we're seeing a lot lately is that it's not greasy. A lot of people would think that putting an oil on your face is, going to make it feel like French fries or something. But we go for like glowy, but not greasy. And I think a lot of people are saying, their skin just looks better, healthier, more moisturized, especially as people age. I think that's come up a lot. And actually, a lot of men recently have been buying and leaving
Really?
reviews. Yeah. We were a little surprised, but happily.
Yeah. It's really hydrating. And I think people say that it just feels really good on their skin. Their skin looks better. That glowy, which we love, sort of that glowy vibe. You just put it on and your skin just looks healthier. And people that, sometimes have skin sensitivities and things like that, have said that it's really soothing on their skin as well, which is really nice.
Dumb question. Why is it important to have hydrated skin?
I think it just looks healthier. You can imagine somebody just looking pale and anemic and dry, patchy skin. And then you picture somebody who's kind of vibrant and has a little glow and a little
Like yourself.
pink. Yeah. Hopefully a little pink and health. I don't know. I think humans are just trained to enjoy looking at somebody who looks healthy and yeah.
Yeah. I think naturally our skin barrier is, we do have moisture in our skin. I think it serves a protective function too. And as we age, we lose that moisture. And, also if you're not hydrating. And so part of, just kind of being healthy and taking care of yourself is having nice, soft skin.
Now, when I looked at the online store, the price of the product jumped out to me. Now, I'm not in the facial oil market, so I don't know what your average non-kelp. Yes. I don't know what your average non-kelp product costs, but am I correct to think that this seems more expensive than your average product?
So I originally took a survey of 25 facial oils, and the median price was about $60 per ounce. And ours is slightly more expensive than that because ours is $68 per ounce. Ours is slightly more expensive than that, but not that much. And we use, all organic carrier oils. It's made in small batches here in Maine. We obviously are farming the kelp and making a kelp extract. So I would say the price is not that different. And then we have kind of a smaller version for $28 that people like for travel or just to try.
Yeah, we definitely decided we wanted to make a luxury product.
Yeah.
So we knew the amount of work and effort and the quality of our extract. And so we agreed that a higher price point, we valued it at a higher price point because of those reasons. And like Krista said, kind of looking at what else was on the market in that luxury face oil market, that's kind of where we came to our.
And it does only require a few drops at every use. So we say 3 to 5 drops on clean skin. So it does last a while.
And do you use once a day, ideally?
Ideally for us, you'd use it 12 times a day.
You'd bathe in it and then rub it all over after your,
Right.
Yeah.
A bottle per day. No, just kidding. Yeah. So I use it morning and night.
Okay.
And a lot of people do that too.
Yeah. Morning and night.
So if you use it morning and night, your standard bottle, how long will that last you?
About 3 months.
3 months. Do you have any type of, in business, you hear all the time about like, oh, what's your 5-year plan and such? Do you guys have long-term visions for more products that you want to sell? How you want this to scale? How you want to get, break out of the Northeast and into the rest of the country? Anything of that nature?
Yes, we do. So,
that's a long.
Right.
Long answer.
So in terms of products, we would love to have products that are kind of water-based and just a more variety of products. And in my mind, that would be best done with like a really high quality extract that we get from our Maine kelp. And you can't just go down the street or to Portland and say, okay, somebody get me some, Maine kelp extract. Like there aren't really those biorefineries or capabilities here in Maine and frankly, almost nowhere in the US. So we are very interested in that. We have done kind of a deep dive into the chemistry of kelp. My uncle is a chemical engineer, and he has been working with us for a couple of years. And so we do a lot behind the scenes with that as our ultimate goal. And whether that takes the form of a biorefinery or, something on a smaller scale, we are kind of still working out. We have some, federal research dollars that we're putting toward that. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But yes, we would love to be selling in 50 states and grow the company as much as we can.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much potential, and it's really exciting to be here at this time when there is innovation and there's new ideas. And, we've kind of fallen into that without even really knowing we were going to. And so I think, yes, the ultimate goal, like Krista said, is we do want to expand our skincare line and have, a variety of products that people can use. We're really working on maximizing these compounds we're looking for in this extract technology. So we're doing some really cool R&D that really hasn't been done before with kelp, trying to maximize some of these compounds. And, ultimately where that will take us, I think we'll launch a few more products, and, we'd love to have our skincare line be more widely sold and known about. But it also could open up other really cool doors for us too.
When you two started Cold Current Kelp, it was, you saw a big hole in the market. No one else was doing this. Fast forward to 2025. Is that still the case?
Yes, I think that is still pretty much the case. I mean, I don't know of another kelp farm in the US that is growing kelp and making a skincare product with it, for example.
Really?
People are starting to investigate kind of the extract technology and realizing the benefits for skincare, but there are very few companies in the US that are doing that. So, I mean, literally almost all kelp farming is done for food. And there are definitely players who are looking to expand that. There are a couple startups that we know of in the Portland area that are looking into bioplastics, and they would like to have a source of locally grown alginate that helps with those bioplastics. So the world is sort of moving in this direction, and we're really excited to be part of the science and that movement as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so alginate is also in kelp. So it's like a structural compound instead of something that's going to help biologically. It structures. So things like bioplastics, which is another super cool potential of kelp. So we would love to be producing an extract that could also have that structural component, a different extract that we could maybe provide to people that are trying to do really cool things like bioplastics.
So you said you've gotten federal research grants for this, but I'm also wondering if it's true that no one else is really farming kelp and then making skincare products out of it. Has any type of other business or investor approached you guys about partnering with you guys on this? Because this seems pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, we've had some talks for sure. And we thus far have just been really focused on financing ourselves, bootstrapping, self-funding, and grants. And we are sort of starting to investigate what would that look like if we took on investment and things like that. But we definitely have not sought that out in terms of private investment so far. But yeah, we've definitely had people reach out, which is great. And maybe someday we'll be ready for that. But because so much work needs to be put into the science of this and the chemistry, it's kind of a risky proposition, which is why, the federal government is interested in funding part of it. And it seems to be a good match. I mean, we've had an SBIR phase 1 grant, which has been really helpful. And we're hoping to proceed with phase 2 of that, which provides a decent amount of money. And that's one of the reasons the government has granted those funds, is because it is so novel and somewhat risky and all that.
How large a grants are we talking here?
SBIR phase 1 was 175,000
Wow.
and SBIR phase 2 is 650,000.
Wow.
And phase 2 would allow us to also commercialize a couple of new products as part of that, which would be really cool.
Okay. What is the process for getting a grant of that stature?
Well, you have to have a free year of time to devote to it. Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And when I started in this kelp business, I barely knew what a grant was. I mean, for real.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Even with your law background?
Yes. And just to be thrown into, how do you calculate the budget and indirect and overhead and all of these terms and reporting and all that. It's been quite a learning experience, but we've been successful on some, federal and state grants, and that's a great feeling. And it just kind of makes us feel good about what we're doing and that other people are interested and that the industry is really kind of just starting.
What were the hardest parts of securing those grants?
Writing them. I mean, it's just by the time you submit the grant, it's probably 100 pages.
Oh, wow.
You essentially have to have all your ducks in a row. So when some people think that, oh, you got a grant, you can pay for this or that. It's like when you hit send on this, every cent is already committed to something.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just free money that you get to choose to spend, as you want once you get the grant. It's really already designated to something or somebody, and that something or somebody is something the government had to approve, and it has to be relevant, and they keep a close eye on it. So it's really, if I could get that message out, it's not just free money. Under some of our grants, we haven't even paid ourselves. There was no salary for us. We were able to hire a couple other, consultant type people. But it's a lot of work, but it pays off. If it's a good fit.
Yeah, it's incredibly technical and it's so detail oriented, very overwhelming, and you have to really have it all. It has to be flawless, essentially. I mean, because it is so intensely vetted, and you've got lots of people looking at it that are making these decisions. We've had help from some great nonprofits and a grant writer, in addition to, Krista's done an incredible amount of legwork too. But it's a crazy intense process.
But I will say in Maine, at least, there are so many amazing resources for startups, for entrepreneurs, for helping with grants. Sometimes just learning about a grant is important step that people don't even get to. And then there are resources that will help guide you, say this, don't say this. This is the way we do it, things like that. So we've had so much help with that. And it's just, you really couldn't do it without that.
Now, you brought something up a moment ago that caught my attention because of all the entrepreneurs and business owners I've had on the show. I've never really broached this subject of how to calculate how much to pay yourself or what salary to give yourself, especially when you're in the early stages of the business, when, a lot of people will just take whatever they make and then just invest it back into the business because you're very early days trying to build something. So how do you guys go about thinking about that? How much, because you do have 6 kids between the both of you and mouths to feed.
Right. Yeah. The short answer is we don't pay ourselves from sales from our products. We really just invest it back in the business and kind of have a long-term view of it in that sense. Grants have gone some way toward, kind of supplementing our family's intake of income, but not something you could live off.
Yeah, I'm a full-time teacher as well right now. I'm, a single parent with a co-parent who is a great provider as well, but I am working full-time as a teacher for now. And so, it would be great if we are cranking and I don't have to do that anymore, but we're not quite there yet.
How long do you think before you're there?
We have this conversation all the time.
I'm sure.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Right.
I believe it's coming. I believe we're getting there.
Yeah.
I think we're closing in on it.
And are you full-time with this, Krista?
Yes, I've been full-time with this essentially since the day we took the walk. No,
really?
Almost, yes. Yeah, I never went back to practicing law. And so this is my life. So
okay. Someone said to me this week that being an entrepreneur is the greatest personal development tool, kind of unintended ways, because it forces you to wrestle with your relationships with money and how you treat others and how you work with other people and such. So I'm wondering for each of you, I'd love to ask each of you, what have been the biggest things that you've learned about yourselves in this 4-year process of running Cold Current Kelp, starting with you, Inga, since this is your idea.
Wow. I've absolutely loved it. I feel like it's given me a sense of purpose that I really needed at that particular time. I think that realizing that you need to be willing to do anything at any time, and that you need to be willing to sacrifice other things in order to really commit to being successful, I think is been a lesson that I've learned. I don't know. I give Krista a ton of credit for kind of driving the ship, in a lot of ways when I haven't been able to. And I just think it's been an incredible growing and learning opportunity. I mean, considering everything that, we've done, I think I think we both really enjoy what we're doing. And that's been really cool. I think we're both really happy to be here and happy to be doing this. And we really believe in what we're doing. And yeah, you just kind of have to be up for anything and be willing to learn and be willing to be okay with not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say probably just getting more confidence about the whole thing. I mean, we are two people who had no background in sales and marketing, graphic design, skincare, entrepreneurship, really any of the skills, aquaculture, kelp, really any of the skills that we need these days. And so I really just didn't have much confidence coming into this, but you take it day by day and you learn. And I've also kind of learned that I'm a little bit too much of a perfectionist and, just worrying too much about every little detail. And it's just there's no time for all that,
I'm the opposite. So yeah, we're kind of that yin and yang, I call her eagle eye because if there's a, semicolon that is one, but I also really admire that because she's so precise. So I'm like, if Krista's had eyes on it, it's good, whereas I'm like, it's good.
Yeah. And as another example, I don't know if it's still like this, but you didn't capitalize your name, like Inga Potter didn't have capitals on your email, I think. And I was like, that is my nightmare. But we're a good team,
Yeah, we definitely.
She's the cool girl, and I'm the kind of anal one.
I'm the dreamer. Yeah. But the cool thing is, Krista's also a dreamer, but she really gets shit done. So I did curse.
Yeah.
Yes, we hit our quota.
Yeah, right. We've dropped it. We've dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
No, but I think we do work really well together. Which I hear a lot of cautionary tales about co-founders. Be careful about co-founder relationships, and. We've talked about hard things before, and we're going to talk about probably a lot more hard things down the road. But I do think we are good partners. I think we complement each other, and I think that we enjoy what we're doing. And I want to be doing this full time. I think that's one of the things that I feel like I struggle with the most. But I think we're pretty fortunate in a lot of ways as far as our relationship.
Yeah. And it was almost good, I feel like, that we weren't best friends when we started this. I remember sitting in that Montessori room, talking. It seemed like everybody respected you and you had confidence and you shared your ideas, but we weren't hanging out socially necessarily. And that's kind of why, when you talked about this to begin with, I really thought this is a respectable person. I respect her. Other people do. This is somebody I could do this with where I, I have friends that are kind of loose cannons and, it's just, you wouldn't start a business with anybody, but it's definitely turned out to be a good bet. So,
I know. I'm like, would she still say that now? But yes, I agree. I don't think, I know, in fact, that if I had been doing this on my own, I would be farming kelp and just storing it in my basement, probably. So I feel very fortunate that it was sort of this moment in time that we came together and it worked out so well.
So One. That's awesome. You guys are so simpatico that you're nearly matching today.
I know. We didn't even talk about it.
So I just recently went full-time with this podcast. So this is now my full-time job. And I'm struggling with kind of like the time management of, like the content is the job. Like that's what people see. But there's so much like business back-endy stuff to do. So much admin stuff to do as well. That is requiring so much time that's taking me away from like the actual thing that the public sees. So how do you guys wrestle with that, making sure that you're keeping your eyes on the prize, the products, the quality of the product, the quality of the kelp, and not losing yourself in all of the other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, in one word, I would say offloading. Like as soon as we had enough money to hire somebody to do our books, a tax person, just various advisors and a marketing or a graphic designer, we just started doing that because to do all of that oneself is just so daunting and frankly impossible. So yeah, that's kind of why we haven't really taken a salary. We've been kind of like building the business slowly and being able to free up ourselves to think about, what new products could we do and how could our website be better and things like that. So it is important to have that like support structure around you, which is so hard when you are starting out with no money and no time with a new business.
Amen.
Yes.
Well, friends, thank you so much for joining me today. We have one final question, and it's brought to you by David Higgins, local Seacoast resident and the official investment office of Seacoast Stories. We ask this same final question at the end of every episode every week. And Krista, I will first ask it to you. Krista, if you were to leave this earth tomorrow, what would you hope people remember about you?
Oh boy. Just that I was like kind of just a genuine person. And I don't know why this comes to mind, but like paying people well or like, treating them well and like just recognizing the value in other people and just being like an honest, authentic person, I would say. Yeah.
And that she had glowing skin.
That's, of course. Yes.
Glowing skin till the end.
Yeah.
Inga, same final question to you. How would you want people to remember you?
I mean, kind of along the same route, a loving person, a kind person, a good mom, a good friend, a good daughter, somebody that, would help you if you needed it. And somebody that was genuine. Yeah. Was the real deal.
Those are great final answers. And I can vouch for both of you. I think you're both great people based on what I've gathered so far. And I know after today, you're never going to talk to me again because you're going to be too big to talk to little podcasters like me because cold current kelp is going to be valued at multi-billion dollars and you're going to move to Silicon Valley.
Oh, that's right. We're going to totally forget all about the Seacoast. Yeah.
But only because we appeared on your world famous podcast.
Yes.
So you're the guy who started it all.
We won't forget the little people. Don't worry.
Yes. And I should say y'all were on How I Built This, which is one of my favorite podcasts as well. So
yes.
How I Built This built you up for Seacoast Stories.
Yeah, I love that. It prepped us.
That's Inga Potter and Krista Rosen of Cold Current Kelp in Kittery. If you'd like to purchase their signature facial glow oil, you can visit the website link in the show notes, where you'll also find Inga's TEDx Portsmouth talk. As for us, the next Seacoast Stories Dinner Club is taking place on August 20th in Dover. If you want in, just take the quiz in the show notes, and then we'll strategically assign you to a table with 5 other strangers that we believe you'll hit it off with. Our first one, with 40 plus listeners in Portsmouth 2 weeks ago, was a huge hit. And now we're committed to bringing listeners together every month through Dinner Club. We hope to see you there soon. And if you see me around town this week, perhaps at Ornell's Barbecue, the Press Room, or Prescott Park, please stop me and say hi. I would love to hear your story. Until next time, have a great week. Live free or die.